Get those constitutions open to Article 2. We're still in Section 1 of Article 2. Article 2 is the executive branch. That, of course, is the president. The primary function of the executive branch is to enforce the laws. Alright, let's do a little bit of review. What are the constitutional requirements for president? Peyton?
You have to be 35.
Gotta be 35. What else? Malaya?
A natural born citizen.
Gotta be a natural born citizen. Kelsey?
Be a resident of the U.S. for at least 14 years.
Have to have lived here for 14 years, and that's it, the only requirements. How about a term for president? How long is a presidential term? Chrissy?
4 years.
4 years. And we know that presidents are limited to 2 terms, right? But that part is not in Article 2, interestingly enough. That was added to the Constitution later in the amendments. We'll get to that. No term limits in the House or Senate, but the president is limited to 2 terms. Let's see. The Electoral College. All right, this is a review of that. Remember how the Electoral College works. The magic number is 270. The Constitution says you have to get a majority of the electoral votes. And since there is only a possible 538 electoral votes, half of that is 269. Majority means more than half. So that means one more than half is 270. And this is the result of the 2016 election. And it does not matter who wins the most states. It doesn't matter who wins the most land mass. It doesn't matter who wins the popular vote. All that matters is who gets a majority of the electoral votes. And as you can see, Trump had 306, only needed 270. So he became our 45th president. Kelsey?
What would happen if there was a tie? That's what I asked yesterday.
Good question. Got to cover that. If there's a tie, guess what? We do what we always do. We follow the law. The Constitution says that then, and it could happen, right? It could come out 269 to 269. Right? In that case, it would be up to the House of Representatives. They would choose president. But they wouldn't vote individually. They would vote by state. So the 27 representatives from Florida would get together and they would decide who they wanted, and that would be one vote for either Trump or Biden. And then every state would say that. Right? So the guy in Wyoming, it's up, he gets to say for Wyoming, right? Because he's the only one. And then whoever would win that vote would become president. And we've actually used that once or twice in our history. Not because of a tie, but because no one got the majority. And then the House of Representatives decides it. And we'll get to those stories when we get to them in history. Good question. All right. New stuff. Still in Article 2, Section 1. I think you might know this. What would happen? Oh, I know. Still review. When's election day? We didn't cover that. We didn't review that yet. We covered it yesterday. But when is election day? Jessica?
The Tuesday after the first Monday of November.
That's right. The first Tuesday after the first Monday of November. So remember, we looked at this year's calendar, and the first Monday is the 2nd, so election day, of course, is the 3rd, right? But and that happens to be the first Tuesday, but it's not always the first Tuesday. For example, last time in 2016, the first Tuesday wasn't until the 7th, the first Monday wasn't until the 7th. So when was election day? The 8th. Not the first Tuesday, the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. Kind of a peculiar way to put it, isn't it? Believe it or not, there were reasons for that in 1787 when they wrote the Constitution. Reasons that had to do with harvest being in, All Saints Day, which is November 1st, not traveling on the Sabbath, which is Sunday, that's why they made it a Tuesday. All right, so a bunch of different reasons why they made it that, and we are a nation of laws, and that's the way it's written, so that's how we still do it. All right, now, I think you might know the answer to this, new material starting today. If the president were to die before he could finish his 4-year term, who would become president? And this is easy because we've done this several times. Hannah?
The vice president.
Yeah, the vice president. We've done that several times in history. Sometimes presidents have died from natural causes. There's been a few times where they were murdered, assassinated, and even one time where a president quit before his term was up. And in all those cases, no problem, the vice president becomes president and they finish out what is left of that president's term. They don't get a fresh 4-year term. They just get to finish out whatever was left on that, of the president's term. Now, what has never happened, but could, and we're ready for anything, founding fathers planned ahead, what if the president and the vice president both died? Maybe they were killed in the same attack or accident. Not crazy to think, right? Because the president and the vice president are together quite a bit. And see, it's important to know because we must have a president at all times. Because the president, as we'll talk about later, is the commander-in-chief. They're the head of the military. Only the president can command the military. And only the president can give the order to use a nuclear attack, use our nuclear weapons. They're the only ones with the nuclear codes. Has to be a president in place at all times. So, in the event, tragic event, which has never happened, that the president and the vice president would both die, who would become president? Who's next in line? There is an answer to that. Chrissy?
The Senate?
You making stuff up. We're a nation of laws, Chrissy. Hannah?
The Speaker of the House of Representatives.
The Speaker of the House is next in line. Told you that was a very important position, right? Well, there's one reason why. Again, this has never happened, but it could. And that, of course, now would be Nancy Pelosi. So if for some reason Donald Trump and Mike Pence were both killed, Nancy Pelosi would assume the presidency until the end of the term. Whatever would happen to be left. All right, now I think you know where I'm going with the next question. What if the president and the vice president and the Speaker of the House were all killed? And that's less likely, but again, it could happen because there are times when they are all three together, at least one time a year for sure, and that's the annual State of the Union address, which is every January, and we'll talk about that toward the end of the period. So there is a time where they're all together. They wouldn't have to be together, right? It could be a tragic event or multiple assassins, whatever. What if they were all three killed? We have to have a president. Who's next in line? This is a tough one. Anybody know? Thought you read Article 2. Hannah?
It's the President pro tempore of the Senate.
Yes, the President pro tempore of the Senate is next. And then after that comes the cabinet. So I'll show you a chart. Here is the presidential line of succession. All right, we know the top of the list we've used before, Vice President. Then comes Speaker of the House. We've never used that, but we're ready if we need it. And then President pro tempore of the Senate, and then the cabinet secretaries. Secretary of State, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Defense, Attorney General, and so on. And those are in order. They're in order of when the department was established. State Department being the first one. And the last one we started after 9/11 was the Department of Homeland Security. So there's plenty of names on this presidential succession list, right? But there is a catch. to be president, you still have to meet those requirements. You gotta be 35, natural born citizen, lived here for 14 years. So let's say some tragic attack, right, or event, and we're all the way down to, say, the Secretary of Commerce. And what if he is not a natural born citizen? Or what if he is only 34 years old? Then you'd skip over him and go to the next person on the list. Just because you're next in line, you still have to meet those constitutional requirements. Any questions on the presidential line of succession? Chrissy?
What if they were all
I knew you'd ask that, because every class somebody asked that. What if everybody on that list was killed a terrible tragedy, terrible terrorist attack? Well, we go to great lengths to make sure that never happens. First of all, it's very rare that a large number of these people will ever be at the same place at the same time. But there is a time of the year where they are all at the same place at the same time, and again, that's the State of the Union address, but they're not. Because we will take one person from this list and make sure they don't go. Not only will they not attend, but we will hide them in a secret, undisclosed location, basically an underground bunker somewhere in our country. I can't tell you where. If I told you, I'd have to kill you. I don't know where it is either. But somewhere they're gonna be hidden very, very safely. So in the event of the Capitol building blows up, and that's where the State of the Union address is, and everybody dies, we have somebody in place that could become president. Because we're a nation of laws, you can't just make it up and say, well, okay, I'll do it. No, it's gotta be according to the law. And there's a line of succession. Now, obviously, the person that we're gonna hide is gonna be somebody that meets those qualifications, right? And you'll even hear the news reporter on the night of the State of the Union address. Before it all starts, they'll say, so-and-so, Secretary so-and-so is not in attendance tonight. They are in an undisclosed location. In the event that we need to use the presidential line of succession. Chrissy?
Have you seen the movie White House Down?
Yes, cool
With
action
Jamie
movie.
Foxx and Channing Tatum. That is the best.
Yeah. Any questions on the line of succession? We're ready for anything, aren't we? Founding fathers were planning ahead even for terrible tragedies and disasters. Fortunately, we've never had to go past the vice president on that list, the very first one. All right. Article 2 also says that the president gets paid a salary, just like everybody else that serves our country, right? Incidentally, President Trump has never taken his salary. He's entitled to one by the Constitution, but he doesn't take it. It's actually our money, right? It's our tax money. And he says, I'm not gonna take that, so there's basically gives it back to we the people. The very end of Article 2, Section 1 is the presidential oath of office. We're gonna take some time to talk about this. The president does not become president just because they won an election. Presidents don't even become president, or vice presidents don't become president just because the president dies. You are not president until you complete this oath of office. Why? Because that's what the Constitution says. Read it with me, the last part of Section 1. Before he enter on the execution of his office, he shall take the following oath. And then the rest is in quotations. The president has to say this exactly verbatim. I do solemnly swear, or they could use the word affirm instead of swear, that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Once they're finished with that, at that moment, they are officially president and have all those powers. Now, by the way, our very first president, George Washington, when he took his oath of office, he placed his hand on a Bible. Now, that's not required in the Constitution, right? But he chose to do that kind of to add emphasis to his oath, right? Saying, I'm swearing on a Bible. And the cool thing is, every single president, every last one of them, from George Washington to Donald Trump, the first president to our 45th president, every one of them has used a Bible when they've taken their oath of office. Cool tradition, huh? What Bible they use is up to them. Sometimes they use their family Bible. We still have the Bible that George Washington used. It's in a museum, and a few presidents have used that one. George Bush and George W. Bush both used that Bible. Barack Obama used the same Bible Abe Lincoln used, and that was for symbolic reasons, since Abe Lincoln is the president who freed the slaves. Barack Obama being our first black president, really cool symbolism on using that Bible. So it doesn't have to be a certain Bible, and they don't even have to use it. Maybe someday we'll have a president that takes the oath without a Bible. It's not in the Constitution. It's just a tradition started by George Washington. Pretty cool. And when George Washington was finished with his oath, he added 4 words. He concluded his oath with the words, "So help me God." In other words, I won't be able to keep the promise I just made without God's help. So help me God. Well, again, every president from Washington to Trump, all 45, have used a Bible and ended their oath with the words, "So help me God." Now, again, that's not part of the oath. You won't find that in the Constitution. And yes, we are a nation of laws, but we're also a nation with some pretty cool traditions. And there's a couple of them right there. And it also goes back to what we mentioned before. Yes, we are a Christian nation when it comes to our heritage and our traditions. Every single president took their oath with their hand on a Bible and ended it with the words, "So help me God." Christy, you have a question?
So if the president was like gone but not dead and no one knew where he was and like they didn't like confirm his death, would the vice president still become president?
Not unless the president is dead. The vice president could become what we call acting president.
Yeah, but like what if they're not sure that they just assume he is?
You can't assume. You can't assume anyone's dead until you have a body.
Because that's what they
That's the
thought
law.
about Jamie Foxx in the movie, but he actually wasn't dead.
Yeah, I don't remember that part. Okay, I need you to look up here for a minute. We know election day this year is November 3rd, right? This is 2020, November 3rd is election day. Let's just assume for a minute that Joe Biden wins. Will he become president November 3rd? No. November 4th? No. He's not president until 2 things happen. First, Trump's term has to end, and then second, Biden would have to be sworn in, he'd have to take that oath we just read. So the way we do it is we hold elections in November, and then the following January, specifically January 20th, we have a ceremony called the inauguration ceremony where the president takes the oath of office. And we do it at precisely 12 o'clock noon, because that's exactly when the president's term expires. So President Trump won in November of 2016, and he took the oath of office at exactly 12 o'clock noon on January 20th, 2017, and he gets to be president for how long?
4 years.
4 years exactly to the minute, so he is president. Donald Trump will be president until January 20th, 2021, 12 o'clock noon, and then his term expires. If Trump wins in November, he will have to take the oath again for his second term. If Biden wins in November, Trump's still president until that moment, but then Biden will have to take the oath in order to actually become president. We call that the inauguration day. We hold the ceremony on the steps of the Capitol building. Any questions on how that works? So if Biden were to win November 3rd, he's going to be called President-elect Biden. He won't be President Biden until noon, January 20th. So here you go, here's a video. So this is a video of the last time there was an oath of office. So based on your knowledge of the Constitution, what's the date right here at this picture? What date is it? January 20th. What year?
17.
2017. Remember, Trump won in November of 2016, so this is January 20th, 2017. Look at the clock. 11:59. So at this very moment, who is the President of the United States? Barack Obama. He's in the last moments of his presidency, right? And Donald Trump is getting ready to take the oath of office. His wife will hold the Bible for him. This gentleman here is Chief Justice John Roberts of the Supreme Court. See, the judge must administer the oath of office. It doesn't have to be the Chief Justice. That's just one of our traditions when we do it on Inauguration Day. We let the Chief Justice administer the oath. All right, so here you go. We'll watch the last time this happened.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States
the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Congratulations, who? Mr. President, because at that moment, he's president. Look at the clock. That's Pacific time, so in Washington, it's 12 o'clock noon. That's the moment Donald Trump became president, and he is president until 12 o'clock noon, January 20th, next year. No matter who wins the election. Again, if he wins, he has to be sworn in again. If he loses, then Joe Biden will be sworn in. Questions, Chrissy?
What he was taking me of this, what if he like that before noon, he got shot or like died, would Barack Obama's vice president still be president, or would it be Donald Trump's
No.
president?
Great question. Interestingly, Mike Pence, whoever the vice president-elect is, they take their oath first for that reason. So if the president were to be killed before he gets his oath in, we have an official vice president who can then take the oath and
So
become
when
president.
does the vice president take his like before, so like around like 11:58?
The minute before he takes his. Yep. All right, here's a story. When Barack Obama took his oath, he fumbled the oath. He didn't get it word for word. Partly because Chief Justice John Roberts messed him up. Barack Obama was trying to repeat after him, and it's a mess. And when they were done, people noticed, well, that's not good enough. We are not a nation of, oh, you know what it means. We're a nation of laws, right? So the next day, Chief Justice Roberts went to the White House and administered the oath to Barack Obama again, and they got it right. Why do we care? Why do we do that? Because we're a nation of laws, not a nation of, oh, you know what he meant. All right, so they, the next day, followed up and got it right. So you might say, for that whole day, we didn't have a president. Because George W. Bush's term expired at noon, and Barack Obama never completed the oath.
What about
So
his
we didn't have
vice
anybody
president?
by law that was president.
His vice president.
Not president, he's vice president.
His vice
Two
president.
at the White House Wednesday night. In a rare do-over, Chief Justice John Roberts administered the presidential oath of office to Barack Obama for a second time. Roberts flubbed the oath on Tuesday, causing Obama to repeat the wording differently than as prescribed in the Constitution.
Barack Hussein Obama,
I,
do solemnly swear
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear
that I will execute the office of President to the United States faithfully
that I will execute
faithfully, the office of President of
the
the
office
United
of President of the
States,
United States faithfully,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend.
But the scene was a little different the second time around. The men were in the White House map room in front of a small group of reporters and not on the Capitol platform while the world watched. Some constitutional experts say the do-over probably was not necessary, but that it couldn't hurt. Obama is the third president to repeat the oath. Calvin Coolidge and Chester A. Arthur had similar issues.
All right, more on the oath of office. This is a very famous photograph from a dramatic moment in our country's history. This date happens to be November 23rd, 1963. Earlier that day, President Kennedy had been murdered, assassinated. He was riding in a convertible through downtown Dallas, seated next to his wife, First Lady, when someone shot him in the back of the head, blew out his brains. All right, well, at first we didn't know who it was, but we were in a Cold War with the Soviet Union, and they had nuclear weapons. We thought it even could have been the communist dictator of Cuba, Fidel Castro. We didn't know who it was. But all we knew is we need a commander-in-chief in place, right? We gotta get somebody sworn in. This is his vice president, Lyndon Baines Johnson. We call him LBJ. He didn't become president just because Kennedy died, right? He's gotta take the oath first. So as soon as we could, we made sure that happened. So if you look at this photograph and look at the surroundings, they're on board an airplane. That's Air Force One. It's sitting on the runway in Dallas, Texas. They're getting ready to fly back to Washington, D.C. The president's body's in a casket in the cargo hold of the airplane. This lady here, she's not the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, that's okay, but she is a local judge. They had her come on the plane just to administer the oath, and she was done. All right, so he's taking the oath. The lady standing next to him there is Jackie Kennedy, President Kennedy's wife or widow. You can see she still has a stunned look on her face because she was sitting right next to him when it happened. She's still in shock. What you can't see in the photograph is a pink skirt and her nylons, still splattered with her husband's brains and blood. Very dramatic moment in our nation's history, but the point is, that didn't happen on January 20th, right? Happened because the president died. That didn't happen. He didn't become president. LBJ didn't become president just because Kennedy died. He had to take the oath to be officially president. Why? Because we are a nation of laws. That's how seriously we take it. It's not just, well, we know who's up next. No, we follow the law. Questions, Chrissy?
I was saying, would Barack Obama's vice president be president because he didn't take the oath?
No, because his vice president never took the oath to become president. Why would he be president?
No, Trump's vice president. Wait.
No, someone has to take the oath. Well, how many times I gotta tell you that, Chrissy? You have to take that oath that we just read to become president.
So the vice president has to take it before the president.
Yes, but it's not the presidential oath, it's the vice presidential oath.
Oh, or they take different.
Yeah, there's a separate oath for the vice president. Any questions on Article 2, Section 1? Let's go on to Article 2, Section 2. These are the powers of the president. In other words, these are the things the president can do if he wants to. All right? We already know the president has enormous powers. There's things the president can do that nobody else can do. All right, and here are some of them. One of the biggest ones is the president serves as the commander-in-chief of our military. That means the president is above our military. He gives orders. Everyone in the military, from privates to generals, must obey those orders. That's what commander-in-chief means. Most presidents, in fact all presidents, will say that is the most humbling power they have, because they have to send our brave young men and women into places where they could be hurt or killed. Very important responsibility. And you know how the military works, right? It's all about chain of command. If someone that is a superior rank than you gives you an order, you must obey without question. And if you run across or pass somebody that's a superior rank to you, you have to salute them. So everyone in the military, from privates to 4-star generals, have to salute the commander-in-chief, which is the president. And of course, the president passes people in the military a lot because of his duties, so you'll see this a lot. You'll see military personnel saluting their commander-in-chief. Part of their orders. They have to do that. And usually the president will salute back because they have respect for the job our soldiers do. Any questions on commander-in-chief? Remember, the president is commander-in-chief. He orders the soldiers, they obey. He can send them anywhere in the world, but can the president declare war? Well, then who does declare war? Congress. Only Congress can declare war. That's what it says in the Constitution. Congress, can they order the troops to do anything? No. That's the commander-in-chief, that's the president. Again, part of that separation of powers. So no one can become too powerful. All right, another power of the president, this is a big one. The president can issue pardons for anyone who has committed a crime or even accused of committing a crime. So a pardon means forget about it. It never happened. So if you're in prison, maybe on death row, whatever, and the president issues you a pardon, you are free to go. You're a free person. And not only that, but it's erased from your record. So you no longer have that crime on your criminal record. You are pardoned. Or maybe the person isn't even been prosecuted yet. Maybe there's a suspicion they committed a crime. The president pardons them, all investigation stops. It's like it never happened. That's a huge power, isn't it? And throughout history, presidents have used that power hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Some presidents a handful, some presidents hundreds. Quite often it's controversial. The president uses that power. Some people like it, some people don't. But you know what? It doesn't matter what anyone thinks. Why? Because we're a nation of laws, and the Constitution gives the president that power. He doesn't have to explain himself why. It just says he can do it. Any questions on the power of pardon? Another interesting power the president has, and this is something going on right now in our nation's history, is it says that he shall have the power to appoint judges for the Supreme Court. Right, that's happening right now, right? Now, we'll learn in Article 3, the Supreme Court has 9 judges, and the president can't appoint people to the Supreme Court anytime he feels like it. There has to be an opening. Well, there is an opening because one of those 9 judges, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, died a few weeks ago, right? So, according to the Constitution, President Trump gets to pick her replacement, and he has chosen Amy Coney Barrett. All right, and he has followed the Constitution in doing that, correct? He has the power to do that. Which is kind of funny because anytime you watch the news, every single day, a dozen times a day, there'll be some Democrat politician somewhere complaining on TV saying, hey, we're a nation of laws and we have to follow the Constitution. And President Trump has no business appointing someone to the Supreme Court in an election year or this close to an election. Joe Biden said it yesterday. We have to follow the Constitution. We are, aren't we? How in the world can leaders get on TV and say we have to follow the Constitution as if we're not, when we are? How do they get away with that? What's the answer? How do they get away with that?
Because there are a lot of ignorant people.
Because there's a lot of ignorant Americans. And politicians like to take advantage of our ignorance. and you can see it, hear it with your own eyes and ears right now. There are leaders who are trying to take advantage of our ignorance. They're telling us the Constitution says something that it doesn't say. In fact, it says the exact opposite of what they're telling us it says. And a lot of people believe them because they don't know any better. See, you know what the Constitution says, but that doesn't mean other Americans do. That's the importance of being informed, right? And not being ignorant. So our leaders cannot take advantage of our ignorance. Now, does the Constitution say the president can't appoint a judge if it's an election year? Doesn't say that. Does it say he can't appoint a judge if we're just days away from an election? No, it doesn't say that. In fact, what if November 3rd comes and goes and Joe Biden wins, and let's say that Ruth Bader Ginsburg would have died after November 3rd? Who's still the president? Donald Trump. Could he appoint her replacement? Yes, because he's president till January 20th. In fact, it could be 5 till 12 on January 20th next year. If Ruth Bader, or let's say that somebody else on the court dies, she's already dead. Let's say somebody else dies. Who could appoint her replacement? Donald Trump, because he's still president, right? Now, it also says that's not all there is, though. The president can appoint them, but he can't force them onto the court. The Constitution also says that by and with the advice and consent of the Senate. So the Senate gets the final say. They get to vote yes or no for his pick. And that's gonna happen starting Monday. The Senate's gonna start hearings considering Amy Coney Barrett, and eventually by the end of the month, if they stay on schedule, they'll have a vote yes or no. And the Senate will do their job following the Constitution. The president's done his job in the Constitution. He's appointed a replacement. Now the Senate takes it from there. They get the final say, but does the Senate get to pick the name of the person? Nope. The Constitution says the president does that, but the president can't force the person out of the court. The Senate gets the final say. Again, that's the separation of powers in action right there. So no one has all the authority. So we're following the Constitution. You don't need to worry. Don't listen to all those people. They're not ignorant. Joe Biden's not ignorant when he says that. He's just counting on the American people being ignorant and not understanding the Constitution. Well, he might be able to fool some people, but he can't fool you because you know what the Constitution says. Any questions on that part? All right. Yes?
What if the Senate votes no for?
If the Senate votes no, then whoever's president at that time can make another pick. President Trump could pick another person, or if it's Biden, now he's president, now he gets to pick. So in my silly example, if it was 5 till 12 and Trump picked somebody and then Biden gets sworn in, well, the Senate will probably say no to Trump's pick. But if they could say yes, and too bad Biden, the Senate says yes, but if they would say no, then Biden would say, well, all right, now it's my turn. So. Beautiful thing, that separation of powers. All right, Article 2, Section 3. Look what that's about. That's the duties of the president. You know the difference between a power and a duty, right? A power is something the president can do. A duty is something they must do. Now, these are things the president has to do because we're a nation of laws. Let's read the first sentence of Section 3. It says, he shall from time to time give to the Congress information of the state of the Union. Well, we figured out over the years that from time to time means once a year. So we do it every year in January. We call it the State of the Union Address. State of the Union means condition of the country. So the Constitution says the president has to tell Congress how the country's doing. Well, now the State of the Union Address, every year, the president travels up to the Capitol building and goes into the House chamber. where the president will address a joint session of Congress. That means both houses of Congress are there, the House of Representatives and the Senate. Why? Because that's what the Constitution says he has to do, is tell Congress how the country's doing. He's actually telling Congress by law, but because of modern communication, we know he's not just talking to Congress anymore, right? He's talking to us, the American people. He's talking to other world leaders. He'll have messages in his speech to people of other countries. But by law, he has to tell Congress how he thinks the country's doing. So here you can tell from last January, President Trump giving a State of the Union address. Who's this lady?
Nancy Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi. Who's she? Why is she up there? What position does she hold? She's Speaker of the House, right? And since he's talking to the House of Representatives, that's her group. So she's on the platform with him. Who's this guy? Mike Pence, the Vice President, which means he's what? Do we really gotta go back over yesterday's lesson? What is he? He's the President of the Senate. So since President Trump is talking to the Senate, that's his group. So he gets to be on the platform with the President. This is one of those days we hope there's not a bomb in the podium, right? Because that would take out the first one on the presidential succession and the second one. And this is that day of the year when we make sure there is somebody in that underground bunker that's on that list, that's qualified to be president, just in case. Chrissy?
Can the president not be president? Like, can they move on even if he's not dead? Like, can he get kicked out of office?
Yes, in fact, if you look at Article 2, Section 4, the very end of Article 2 on the executive branch discusses impeachment. You see where that is? And it outlines the process. And what can happen to a president if they're impeached is they could be removed from office. That means kicked out. And we will have to talk about that next time because we don't have enough time to cover impeachment. So somebody remind me where we are. When we get here Monday, we'll finish up Article 2, and then we'll get into the judicial branch, Article 3.